Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, to everyone who's joining us today. We are happy to have you all here. I know you are joining from different parts of the world, and for some of you, it's late in the evening. To some of you, it's early in the morning, but we appreciate your attendance. Thank you for joining us on the webinar today, where we are going to be discussing safeguarding and protecting of practitioners in sports. We are supposed to be starting with the welcome remarks. I hope we have Catherine here to open the session for us before we can get into it. Catherine? Okay, I think she can always come back to deliver her words. Let's just move on to discuss the safeguarding in sports and protecting the sports practitioners. Joined here by Gloria Viseras from IOC, Diane Huffman from WomenSport International, and Mariam Ibrahim from GIZ. We will introduce them as they do their presentation, but thank you for allowing this discussion to go on, and thank you for agreeing to be with us today. We are just going to have a 1 hour session of discussing safeguarding, mainly because TAFISA has recently designed or developed the safeguarding guidelines to make sure that we encourage our members to start something on safeguarding in the respective organizations, either to start if they have started already, to make sure that they continue. So what we have is safeguarding guidelines, which are going to assist them to understand what safeguarding is and what they need to do. But we are also working on this to make sure that at the end of the day, we don't reinvent the wheel. Rather, we direct our members and the Global Sports for All movement to where the safeguarding resources are. So we are having this panel here today to discuss the work that they are doing and also to help us know where the resources are. If from your organizations you are doing something with safeguarding, we are happy to hear that, and also for you to share the links so that the Global Sports for All movement can actually be able to access your project, because there's no need for us to start what is already happening, but we want to create a platform, an environment where we know where the resources are that can be utilized, whether paid for or for free. But at the end of the day, we all agree here that safeguarding sport is a very important component that we need to discuss on. So I'll start by introducing to you our guidelines for you to appreciate the newly developed guidelines. And if there's any comment that you'd want to make to maybe for us to enhance the guidelines, feel free to respond to that. But like I said, we are not going into a fully fledged project, because we already have partners in place who are already doing the work. We are just creating something that can direct the project to where the resources are. So without wasting time, I'll go into the guidelines. Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, I can see it myself. Stacy, I'm having a problem with my screen. I can't see anything on my side. Please, sorry, but please share for me there. Oh yeah. No, the safeguarding presentation, Dennis. Apologies, technology has just happened, but when I was trying to check if it's working, it was working, but now it's folded on me. Thank you so much, Denise. Yes, we are presenting the Safeguarding in Sports for All guidelines by TAFISA. Just also to give a little bit of background, the Safeguarding guidelines are going to be part of a project that I'll present at the end of this session, which is a toolkit for a training pathway. That is what really influenced us to start this, but I'll talk about the project more. But for us to come up with this safeguarding guidelines, it was to answer a few questions to make sure that our members and the Sports for All movement are taking all the necessary steps to maintain safety for participants and individuals involved in sports and within the organizations. Also, we are trying to make sure that they have implemented measures to ensure a safe and secure environment for those participating in their respective sports. And our guidelines are mainly to provide information on safeguarding practices and offer guidance, like I said, on creating safe environment. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, the content of the guidelines, we have a bit on why safeguarding, why it's important to have a safeguarding program in your respective organization or sports or a club, and also how to recognize safeguarding issues and how to respond to them. And then we linked our guideline to the 8 safeguards and the safeguarding principles that are found in the safeguard website. And also we gave a bit on what the organization should do on safeguarding, what the coaches should do and officials should do to create a safeguarding culture, and then what athletes and participants should do to create a safeguarding culture. And then lastly is links and materials to read all the resources that we could found at the time we were designing this on what we need to do, how to get more training on safeguarding, what to read for you to be able to implement safeguarding, how to create a policy, all those links we have created in the safeguarding guidelines. Next slide, please. Thank you. Why safeguarding sports for all? We encourage our members, sport for all organizations, to have safeguarding in order to make sports enjoyable and a safe environment for play. We want to address the challenges that are there, the challenges of abuse, mismanagement, sexual harassment, bullying, racism, and discrimination in sports, which often go unnoticed, leading to negative experiences and premature exit from the field of sports, particularly affecting women and girls. We want to address the negative impact which comes with unsafe practices that discourages participation and that hinders physical activity promotion, which results in the untimely departure of individuals from sports, undermining inclusivity and community retention efforts. Next slide, please. And then we have a bit of, this is not the actual the guideline, but it's just a brief from the guideline, the summary. We have this, the whole document on our website where we can download it, and we will share the link to the guideline. And then how do you recognize and respond to the safeguarding concerns, abuse and harm? What are those safeguarding concerns? Behavior of adults or participants, which could include athletes, coaches, volunteers, athletes interaction, including bullying, recruitment risks that come with a criminal record or not vetting the people that we are recruiting. So we do also encourage the organization to go through the vetting process, even if you are, it's for volunteers. It's very important to engage volunteers after we have made some background checks. And also the concerns beyond sports impacting participant safety. We do have these athletes at sports, we do have these participants, but they also have life outside sports. How much of that is safe and that can make their participation in sports conducive? And also the response approach. We are approaching it from promoting consent awareness. We know that through IOC, they have a whole program on consent and how to receive that consent. We have Gloria here who probably will talk about that. If not, we do have a bit of it in our guidelines. We also encourage reporting, knowing that no incident should be overlooked. So no rumor should be overlooked, no incident should be overlooked. Ensure reporting and also investigating until we are certain that there is no harm that has happened, or there's harm that has happened, and then action can be taken. And also we talk about establishing secure reporting processes, sharing contacts for safeguarding concerns, also fostering an environment for
so Friday you will pay 15, but it was owed. So you'll pay me 15.
And then next slide, please. Like I said, we have how to create a safeguarding culture in your own organization, how to create the safeguarding culture as a guide for athletes and participants, and also as a guide for coaches. So from the guidelines, that is what we have. And we also have what is essential for sports organizations to have as a clear guidance on safety and safeguarding procedures, from the safeguarding framework and policy to developing advocates who are going to make sure that they continue the conversation about the safeguarding concerns, and also to ensure that all the staff volunteers have appropriate training, and also to make sure that they include the safeguarding processes during event planning, and also to formalize a system for reporting concerns and all other measures that are important to make sure that we create a safeguarding culture in our organizations, and through the coaches, through participants, and through athletes. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you so much. That is in a nutshell what is in the guidelines, and feel free to engage us on what needs to go in there, what we believe that even though it's just a guideline, what we believe that we need to put in the guidelines. We are happy to revise them to make sure that we give our members something that they can really work on. But like I said, we do not want to reinvent the wheel, but rather make sure that we work with existing structures to make sure that we deliver on safeguarding. Thank you so much. I'll now hand over to Catherine to give us welcome remarks before we can go into the roundtable discussion. Catherine Forde is from the CANOC and in the Caribbean region, and she's the TAFISA board member. You are welcome, Catherine, to give us a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Diane. Thank you so much. Good morning, participants. On behalf of the TAFISA Board of Directors, a very warm welcome. And I have to say warm because that's what we have at the moment here. I should add and make you envious. I could say sunny, you know, all those good things. To all of you, to the safeguarding and protecting practitioners in the Sport for All webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to see such a diverse and esteemed gathering from across the globe. In a world that celebrates the joy of sports, it is imperative that we ensure that this joy is coupled with safety, respect, and inclusivity. The webinar today is a manifestation of our commitment to enable these values into the core of Sport for All. Safeguarding is not just a term, it's not just a buzzword. It's a commitment that we at TAFISA make to ensure that every and each individual, including our coaches, volunteers, and participants, can engage in sports and physical activities within an environment that is safe, respectful, and nurturing. This webinar underscores our dedication to fostering these principles within the realm and reach of Sport for All. As Vice President of TAFISA, I am proud to announce the launch of the Safeguarding in Sport for All guidelines. More than words, these guidelines embody our resolute commitment to globally recognize safeguarding standards and to maintaining them. They signify our determination to construct an environment where every participant's well-being in sport and physical activities is paramount. This will serve as a guide to our members of the global sport for all movement towards nurturing, secure, healthy, and engaging spaces. Today's webinar initiates discussions on essential topics: effective safeguarding, collaboration among organizations, roles of sports bodies, raising awareness, and addressing challenges for safe sports. These talks and a sharing of ideas will shape actions that leave a lasting impact. Your participation in this webinar reflects your commitment to the betterment of sport for all. Each perspective shared here today holds the potential to guide policies, practices, and actions that can transform the landscape of sport, ensuring that they become a haven of growth, development, and inclusivity. I urge you all participants to actively engage, share your insights, and ask questions. We are here to learn from each other, to collaborate, and to instigate and initiate change. I believe that by the end of this session, we will not only be armed with valuable knowledge, but also a renewed determination to fortify the safety and security of all those engaged in the world of sport. Let's remember the power of collaboration and shared responsibility. Together, we can shape a brighter future. Thank you all for being here, and may I wish you all an inspiring and thought-provoking webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for those words. I think you've summed it up for what we want to do with the safeguarding in TAFISA. Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate. Now we'll go into the roundtable, and I'll start first with inviting Gloria Viseras, Senior Project Manager from IOC's Safe Sport Unit. Gloria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today on behalf of the IOC. My name is Gloria Viseras. I am from Spain. I am a former Olympian. I competed in gymnastics when I was 15 years old in Moscow in the Olympics. And today I'm very, very happy to be able to contribute to keeping everybody safe, as I am also a survivor of child sexual abuse in the context of sport. So without any delays, I'll keep on with my presentation. Next slide, please. So the IOC has been working on safeguarding already for a number of years. It was 2013 when they started, but the IOC Safe Sport Unit was officially and formally established at the beginning of this year. It is headed by Kirsty Burrows. She is the head of the Safe Sport Unit. I am the senior project manager, and I specialize on competitions, on developing education and capacity building, and on supporting IFs and NOCs in the development of policies and procedures. My colleague Scott Sloan, he is leading on all of the work that we do on mental health, which is also under our remit. Tina Vertomen, she's one of the leader researchers in the field at the world level, and she is the one who always ensures that we are staying very, very close to the science and the evidence in everything that we do. And Kari Rocker is the one who ensures that we keep the highest standards of quality in our work. So next slide, please. That's the team, and we are all for you there if you need anything. So we're mandated by the Olympic Agenda 2020+5 with recommendation 5 that says that we need to further strengthen safe sport and the protection of clean athletes. We have a very, very strong focus on our athletes, on our Olympic athletes, but of course we extend our work to include the protection of everybody involved in sport across the Olympic movement. It's not just the athletes, it's everybody, coaches, referees, everybody, all the participants in sport across the Olympic movement. Next slide, please. So in our safeguarding action plan, we have two strategic intents. One has to do with the Olympic movement to inspire and support in fostering safe sport and athlete well-being worldwide. The second one has to do with the Olympic Games and the Youth Olympic Games, and that is to remain at the forefront in the field of athlete safeguarding and well-being. Next slide. With regards to the Olympic movement, we do have one of its kind certificate program that is a 7-month program with 7 modules and 250 hours of learning and 3 exams. And so far, yesterday, we had the graduation ceremony of the second cohort, and right now we have 160 students from 66 countries already graduated with our certificate, and we are starting the third cohort with more than 100 students for this year. Also, part of our work is to encourage the safeguarding officer positions in the NOCs and the IFs. And we do that by, for example, making available safeguarding officer accreditations for the Youth Olympic Games and the Olympic Games. We support policy development and implementation at the IFs and the NOCs. We do education, capacity building, and awareness. We're constantly developing new courses for the specific stakeholder groups. For example, we just launched 2 new safeguarding courses for youth athletes and their entourage, and a mental health course also for youth athletes and their entourage in the context of the Youth Olympic Games in Gangwon at the beginning of next year. And we are also working on establishing safe sport systems and structures at regional level by implementing regional hubs. And I will talk about that a little bit later in more detail. So next slide, please. With regards to the Olympic Games, we are working on implementing safeguarding across the complete life cycle of the Olympic Games and Youth Olympic Games. We are updating policies, procedures. We're updating our safeguarding framework. That's big work going on at the moment. We are working on several consensus statements, one about safeguarding that is going to be published at the end of this year. We're implementing a new mental health action plan that was developed by my colleague. And we are also implementing at the Olympic Games dedicated safe sport areas where we provide activities and information and education for the athletes, and where we also have our office where they can request support, and we can provide support not only to the athletes but also to members of their entourage. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. I have here a list of resources. I'm not going to go in through all of them, but when you receive the presentation, you will have them there. These are a number of resources on safeguarding and mental health. Next slide, please. We have the toolkit and the webinar series, for example, as well. Next slide, please. We have the fact sheets, which are aimed at the entourage with some guidance, and they're very, very helpful. Next slide. Next slide, please. And we have the mental health toolkits and the mental health resources that you can also access, and they are free for everybody to use. Next slide. And with that, I mean, I see all my text is already shifted, but that's okay. We always go back to our main values in the Olympism. It's about friendship, and we consider this to be working together to address safeguarding in sport in a cohesive way and at all levels. Next slide, please. Excellence in our approaches and in everything that we do, and this also means to putting the athletes, putting the children practicing sport at the center of everything that we do. And next slide, please. Respect for each other and for the values of safe sport and for the integrity of sport. That's my presentation. Thank you very much. Next slide. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the discussion later.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gloria. Thank you. I could see that you're in a marathon, but thank you for that. We really got it. We'll definitely have a few minutes for discussion. Thank you. I'll now call upon Diane Huffman, the President of WomenSport International, to share with us her presentation. Diana? You unmute. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Hami. It's a pleasure to be here and welcome everybody. So I'll just try and share this now. Okay. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
So, okay, so I've got something coming up here in front of me. I can't see. There we go. So, I'll be talking about WomenSport International. I am the president of WomenSport International, and this is my second term. We have 4-year terms. WomenSport International is a leadership organization. We started in 1994. And we're one of the first actually international advocacy organizations for women. We're fearless. I have to say we are quite fearless in what we do, because we do identify barriers and issues that often others are not willing to open up the discussion on. And we use evidence-based research necessary to make the change. So all of our advocacy is based on research. Most of our board is made up of researchers from universities or medical field. So WSI is a collaboration of researchers that are committed, passionate, and knowledgeable on understanding that no one person or organization can affect change alone. And I think that that's one of the principles that TAFISA is pushing as well, in that bringing us all together to ensure that their policies and their principles are being managed appropriately. So we collaborate, and together with other dedicated organizations, we've moved forward the agenda, particularly on safeguarding and knowledge base in sport. So I guess I'm managing this. So a few landmarks that we've made in reducing non-accidental violence in sport has been, one, we started way back. We started our organization in 1994, but in 1995, we actually had one of the first task force on sexual harassment and abuse. So this was started at that time, and by 1996, this was actually led by Kari Fasting. She was one of the founding members. I'm not sure if all of you are aware of who Kari is, but she's an expert in gender and became totally engaged in non-accidental violence for most of her career. So they produced at that time a written statement on the topic of safeguarding and a leaflet on sexual harassment and abuse, which was published and distributed around the world, which influenced many institutions and organizations. So people did start thinking about this quite a while ago. By 2004, we had a promotion of a position statement. And this helped us and led to our work with the IOC and UNICEF, requesting our researchers support and advice in the work that they were moving forward. So WomenSport International as an organization wasn't requested. I have to make that clear. It's our board members who were requested based on their knowledge and their expertise in these areas. In 2007, up to the first consensus statement on sexual harassment and abuse was put out by the IOC, and we were a major contributor to that. And then that was redone in 2016. Again, we were part of that process. We received UNESCO's, the Economic and Social Council's consultative status in 2010. And since then, we've participated in parallel sessions at the UN on safeguarding in particular for girls and women. We've also participated in advising UNESCO on their strategy and in their approach to ensure safeguarding and ensure that gender and women and girls are not excluded in the text of what they're presenting and in their deliverables and in their processes, so that women and girls are identified and are given a voice. In 2014, we were one of the founding members of Safe Sport International, and they're still a partner. With Safe Sport International, although we were working on safeguarding extensively, it is not our only mandate. We're an organization that's dealing with many of the different issues that are facing girls and women. And so people wondered, well, why is Safe Sport International? Isn't there a conflict? No, it's a complement. And as we say, there's enough work to go around. So we're supportive of them. And as I indicated, a couple of our board members were actually founding members of Safe Sport International. In 2016, we were part of the development of the IOC's toolkit on safeguarding of athletes from harassment and abuse in sport. In 2017, we were part of the because of our UN status, we were party to the Kazan report and influential in the development of the Global Observatory for Women in Sport, now Gender and Sport. They've changed their name. In 2023, still our research members are committed, and a couple of them are working on the new consensus statement that Gloria actually mentioned in her presentation. So now I've got to go to the next slide. I don't know, I'm going to get there. There we go. So basically, what we've been doing is influencing policy and practice, not just making sure people have policy, but providing the information that's needed to make sure that your policies are being able to move forward properly, that they're designed based on need and based on the voice of the athlete, of the participants in sport, of the officials, of the coaches, just in general, the voice of everyone through the research. Some of our strong researchers on the board, I'm not sure if all of you may know some of them, but we have Dr. Kari Fasting, Dr. Margot Montjoy, Dr. Gretchen Kerr, Dr. Annie Croney, Dr. Carol Oglesby, and Dr. Becky Clark. And they've been using their research to assist policymakers at all levels of sport. For example, some of the work that their research has been doing is sport doctors' clinical competence to recognize and respond to sport, to harassment and abuse, particularly at games, at the Olympic Games, advocating for athletes' rights in sports and the athlete's voice in policy development and response systems. Athletes are the ones that are often the victims, and they know what's happening. So in ensuring that your policies are hearing what's needed from the athletes themselves. Principles and support against discrimination of marginalized groups of women, in particular, the LGBTQ communities. WomenSport has a task force called the Post-Binary World. It's presently on pause, but however, there are a few efforts that are ongoing with the development of an extensive bibliography of research for the past decade, having implications in these matters, particularly with transgender and sexual differences. These are areas where the marginalized groups are particularly having difficulties, and the research is showing that there's much more discrimination, particularly psychological issues affecting them in their performance and in their desire to even participate. Safety, working with survivors. These are key research areas of our researchers, how to work with survivors, what survivors are needing, and how to set up systems to deal with survivors properly. They are regularly speaking at conferences, webinars, and workshops, and major educators on safeguarding rights in sport and protecting practices for everybody in sports, not just the elite athletes. This is for all, right down to club level, and school systems. Our board regularly sit on commissions, both national and international, providing guidance and strong evidence to assist in driving action toward the protection of all. So one example of this is Gretchen Carr and Margot Mountjoy in Canada. They were a major part of the development of a universal code of conduct to prevent and address maltreatment in sport. And every sport association or federation in Canada has to sign on to this and show their commitment in terms of policy development and in practice. Gretchen is now working towards building this through the university system, university sports system. Many of our researchers are also working a lot on the education of coaches and other officials. So this is basically the areas that we're working on. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time. I hope I didn't go over my time, and I'm looking forward to the discussion as well. Thank you, Ami.
Thank you so much, Diane. I think from what you presented in terms of the work that is being done on research, and from what Gloria has presented from the resources that are out there, it's clear that there's a lot out there that could benefit sport for all practitioners. So I'm happy that we managed to get that out. Next is Mariam Ibrahim from GIZ to share with us the work that they're doing on sport for development. I'm not sure that's only in Africa, but what they're doing on safe sport. Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you, Huffman, and thank you, everyone. Diane, Gloria. I'm going to try to keep it short so we can have more time for discussion. I think just to echo what Huffman was saying, we've heard from the IOC, we've heard from WSI from the more research side. So I work for German Development Cooperation, GIZ. I work for the Regional Project Sport for Development in Africa. So yes, it is an Africa focus, which I'm following the very active chat here. I see Africa is very, very well represented. So what we try to do is basically, again, as I mentioned, we're sport for development. So what is sport for development, or what is our understanding of it? So we try to promote personal and social development amongst our participants. We complement also national curricula for physical education to make sure safeguarding principles, for example, are also included. We work together with local partners. We make sure we're embracing diversity in all its forms. And of course, the most important thing is we make sure, or we do our best to make sure that we're providing a safe and fun learning environment for everyone, to meet also all the specific needs of the participants and of everyone joining our trainings. So where are we based? Right now, we have activities in Senegal, in Kenya, and on Zanzibar. So on the islands, not the mainland. This is an important distinction. And then we also have a political partner, the African Union Sports Council. Maybe many of you already know or are familiar with this body. This is the technical committee in charge of sport, so professional sport and sport for development, so the social aspect of sport on the African continent. So they sit in Cameroon. We have a long-term advisor who is also sitting there to assist in organizational or to support organizational development. So we don't have any activities there per se, but we have a staff member sitting there. So we have a very exciting third phase. As you can see, a very diverse collection of countries. We have a specific gender focus. Together with the gender focus, our main pillar, I would say, is also safeguarding. So what do we understand in safeguarding? What do we try to implement in all of our activities, regardless of where we're leading them? We try to make sure we're enhancing access and equity and inclusion in all the activities. We make sure that participants, or we try to teach them different things so that they're aware of their rights. You've heard from the IOC again and again, WSI, you know, what is harassment, and also Khami touched on this in the beginning, you know, the different forms of abuse, what is abuse, what resources do I have? So we try to work on the participant side and also, of course, on the trainers and teachers side to make sure they're also aware and then are better able to equip their students, participants, trainees to better understand their rights. And then this is on the grassroots level. I think from a more broader level, we also work together with governments. So we work with the national bodies and the countries, or in our partner countries where we're present. And then now the new addition to our commission is getting to work on a Pan-African level with the African Union Sport Council, which is very exciting for us, of course. So I think, you know, this is all theory. In practice, what does that look like? Again, so safeguarding is very context specific. The African continent is huge. So what we try to do is, we're not experts. We try to facilitate discussions with local experts in the countries we are present in, with already existing bodies, with people who are actually participating, who, you know, lead the trainings, who lead the policy, who are part of the communities. So we make sure as best as we can that we adopt a participatory approach. We build on existing knowledge. Again, Khami, I always love the sentence that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we see what's there, how we can work together with already existing resources and then structures as well. And then safeguarding doesn't work without engaging both men and women. This is also a very important aspect of our work. And then I think, which is very important as well, is to be able to work with partners you know well and trust, so you can have this open reflection process, and then you can also say, hey, this wasn't good, we can do better, or maybe here to just be openly critique also your own work every now and then to make sure you're not influencing things in the wrong direction, but making sure you're still being aware and very culturally, contextually sensitive to where you're working. So yeah, I think also here a couple of resources, and then I will hand it back to Khami. We've been working on multiple fronts. You have, again, the Pan-African level. We published a practitioner's guide together with the African Union Sport Council last year. It's available in 6 African Union languages. So it ranges from organizations, facilitators, and also the community. You also have some templates there on like codes of conduct, etc. So I find it very helpful. It's linked here. So when you get the presentation, everything is linked. We also have a free web-based training on safeguarding in sport that's available in English and French, and will be available in Kiswahili very soon, hopefully, and Arabic as well, maybe. So yeah, here it's very also, I would say, more relevant to the African context. You will also see that pictured in the animation and all the examples we use. And then here, Kenya Academy of Sports, this is another example of how we work together with national bodies and then support them in coming up with their own policies. And then just generally, we also try to do awareness raising videos. So here's also an example of a video that is also available in English and in French. And then with that, Khami, I pass it back to you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. I'll start the questions with you, then I go to the others. Mariam, do you have any plans of going to other parts of Africa with the project that you are doing currently in the 4 countries you mentioned?
We are not. We are currently building a network of organizations that work on the topic of gender equality and sport for development. So in that sense, the network is going to be open for everyone in the continent, or organizations based everywhere. So in that sense, maybe, but with a specific focus where we work together with national bodies, no. We need to stick to the commission we have.
Okay, there's a question also for you, Mariam, from Samuel. Yerushalmi, I'm sorry if I don't get the name correctly. The question is, according to you, what are the authorities in Africa needs to develop inclusion of this people with disability, including mental disability in sports? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think what we've seen from our work so far is that we also need to, that often it's the case that when we think of disability, we automatically think of a wheelchair. I think we need to go beyond that. Disabilities come in all shapes and forms and sizes. So what we're trying to do is really move away from disability is not just a wheelchair. There are also mental disabilities, like you're saying. We have a very strong partner across the continent in Special Olympics Africa and all their country offices. They have great resources. If you haven't seen it yet, they've also regularly published new approaches. So I would recommend also going to their websites. And if you're in a country implementing programs yourself, I would just say reach out. They're very responsive. And as I mentioned, they're all very also motivated for the topic, even though many country offices sometimes don't really have access to many resources, but they do great work.
Okay, thank you. As a follow-up to Diana, and the same follow-up to this question, what do you think is the role of mental health and mental medicine in safeguarding in sport in women in sport? Mental medicine and mental health for women in sport and safeguarding. Diana?
Well, I think it's pretty well one of the most important aspects of the whole thing. And in terms of setting up systems to protect people from the harassment and abuse, I think in some of the research we were doing, like in Southern Africa, the 10 countries of Southern Africa, where we conducted, myself and Corey Fasting conducted research there, we found bullying and psychological advantaging in the region anyways was almost 80% of the athletes. We interviewed 1,500 athletes, and almost 80% of them had experienced some type of bullying or neglect. Also is another form that seems to really affect the mental health of the athletes. So it's not just the sexual abuse that is a major issue that has long-lasting impact, but the mental health of athletes, of all participants, can be damaged or affected in some way through not having a safe environment. And of course, the education of the coaches, of administrators, of the whole sector, including parents, is really important in terms of different types of behavior and how to manage your behavior. And as we've already indicated before, it has to be contextualized to the region or to the group that you're working with. It can't be just the same for everyone. The solutions are different. And one of the things that we're trying to work on, or one of our researchers is working on, is looking at different ways that in dealing with response to harassment and abuse, how do we deal with these issues that are maybe not criminalized, but the more sort of hidden, soft areas, and what are some of the tactics that we can use? And a lot of it is coming out that natural responses, where you give the responsibility to the participant to be very clear. So having codes of conduct is one of the key efforts that, and one of the first steps that I believe organizations should take. A policy is another way, but I guess you would call a code of conduct a policy. Yeah. Plus having all of the information in your code, not just the code of your behavior, but the code explaining what are the repercussions for the different types of actions and what actions will be taken and how to report and respond to these things. So your code needs to encompass all of those areas to be able to protect and ensure that our athletes and all participants are protected, because your mental health is, if you're not happy, if you're depressed or experiencing discrimination or some other form of abuse in your sport, why would you stay?
Yeah.
So and the importance of participation is so important. The health benefits overall of participating, we all know those. I mean, that's why we're here. So making a safe environment and making it healthy for the athletes is primary. But you're not going to have volunteers if they're not safe, and you're not going to have people wanting to coach if they don't feel safe. So this is why I really appreciate the fact that it's your policy that, or your process that you're putting forward, Hami, as TAFISA, is all encompassing. It's not just for the elite athlete. We need to be looking at everybody. So I don't know if that's actually answered your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I thank you for bringing in our guidelines, because it's also important to get that feedback and also to emphasize what organization needs to do in terms of code of conduct. Gloria, I'll come to you now. And we have a lot of hands raised. And I think, to be honest, 1 hour was not enough for these people. I'm sorry about that. Gloria, the question is, what according to you will be the need, will be a role of government, state, and municipality authorities in effective safeguarding in sports for all? This is also from Shemuel. I know we've been talking about sports organizations, but what do you think could be the role of government and municipalities in making sure that sport is safeguarded?
It's a very important role, not only sports organizations, but a collaborative approach among all responsible organizations, including the public authorities, the ministries, everybody within the context of a country. Like Mariam was saying, it's a very contextualized context that we need. I mean, safeguarding needs to be delivered at local level. We can, from up here at the international level, we can provide guidance, we can provide tools, but the delivery needs to be done at local level in line with the local legal context. The social cultural context is super important at local level, and authorities need to work together with all sports organizations, so that, like you said, we do not reinvent the wheel, and that everybody's on the same line. And it's not helping with the football is doing one thing, track and field is doing another thing. We need to work together and have a cohesive approach, and have a standardized approach to all of the prevention and the response mechanisms that we implement in the countries. They have a very important role. There are also a number in each country, it's different, but there are a number of public resources that can be utilized by the context of sport in providing recourse and remedy, in providing support. A lot of sport organizations have no knowledge of all of these public resources that are available to them. So it's really important that very close collaboration among all the stakeholders within a country or within a region. That's what we're promoting. We're promoting communities of practice in safeguarding, where everybody's working together to achieve the same goal, which is to keep everybody safe and supported in the context of sport.
Yes, to you, yes, thank you so much. But to you again, Gloria, as we wrap up, what do you think about the TAFISA safeguarding guidelines? I know you don't have them with you, but what we are planning to do, and also people are saying the problem with safeguarding is getting the right information, pamphlet, posters, and the material. So also when you wrap it up, make sure you give them once again where to get that kind of material.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
With regards to the IOC, I have made an effort to put a lot of resources in the presentation. So you have the references there. We have mental health resources. We have safeguarding resources. We have resources specifically for the entourage. We have one that is really, that's one of my favorites. It's the consent video. It's about what does consent mean in sport for the practitioners, for the athletes, and for the children practicing sport. So all those resources are openly available for everybody, and they are in the presentation. So instead of just going through all of them in specifically, I made sure that they are in the presentation so that they can have a look and use them, and make use of them the best they can. With regards to the guidelines, of course, everything that is published is helping a lot in the context. And I haven't had the chance to really read them, but from your presentation, I think they're great. They're a great first step especially for those who are starting now in the safeguarding journey. One of the challenges that we face across the Olympic movement is that we find a lot of gaps in the understanding of what safeguarding means really in practice. So it's really, really useful to have guidelines that are adaptable to, across the world. So thank you very much for that. That's really, really helpful.
Thank you so much. We'll go beyond time with 5 minutes because we started 5 minutes
That's
late.
fine.
Diane, you did talk about the guidelines, TAFISA guidelines, but I would want you to answer the question where to get the research. I know people need to start reading, people need to start doing their own research, go online, but do you think there's where you can direct people to get more information on safeguarding that you are doing?
For sure, we have lists of all of our work and a lot of the contacts of our board members who are doing some of this exemplary work on our website. So I would direct people to the website, but there's also other areas that that things are happening in. And I think if they go to the Government of Canada's website, they can get some very good examples like this Universal Code, which gives you a whole list of areas. There's also I guess there's a couple of different areas in Canada where there is a lot of work happening. There's the Office of Sport Integrity Commission, and they're dealing with safeguarding quite a bit. There's a central hub. So I'm not trying to be biased about Canada, but there is quite a bit going on there in terms of good samples to use as a guideline for yourselves, not to copy, because as all of us have mentioned, context is very important, and the issues facing your own community are important. But yes, our website has contacts that people can feel free to contact our board members individually, or we will connect you to them. And if you look up their names and go to their websites and see some of the research that they're doing. We're also doing research on disabilities, particularly in Southern Africa. We're hoping that it's sort of forward research that we can replicate around the world in terms of looking at having the data to say that this is what's happening. People are not hiring people with a disability. Where are the people with disabilities in the sports sector overall, not just in the International Paralympic or the National Paralympic Committees or Special Olympics, but where are they? Are they on boards? Are they helping to make decisions in general on at National Olympic committees, at national sport federations? And so we're hoping to expand that work and really have valid data to push inclusion and safeguarding of these different minority sectors. So this research will be available on our website once it's published as well. So there's lots of yes, I would look to our website at this point.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And please write the website on the chat for people to follow it. And Mariam, what do you think about the TAFISA guidelines? And also let us know where we can get the information that you just shared. And I know the AUSC framework is also online, but if you have other resources that you want to share, please share on the, let us know. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jaime. Maybe just before I answer your questions, going back to the safeguarding question, I think also what we found very helpful so far is talk to other organizations in your area, right? Because there are a lot of resources. It can be overwhelming sometimes. And if you're still trying to figure out where to start, how do you know this is the correct or the best kind of guide to follow? So I think because also it's very contextual, it's very dependent on the context. Talk to other people who've gone through the process, or just talk to your community, identify the needs, and then go from there. So just maybe just a thought on that. And then with the guideline, I have not read it yet, but from what you were presenting, I think it's also very similar to the practitioner's guide we have published in the structure. So I would assume, knowing TAFISA and the quality it delivers, that it's a great and helpful guide and resource, you know, adding to the literature of safeguarding that is hopefully going to become more and more important, and this traction keeps on growing, or this attention keeps on growing. And then yes, the African Union Sport Council actually just launched their own website, so I can link it in the chat. They're going to be regularly posting stuff there. So again, especially to the colleagues interested in what's happening on the continent or who are based in the continent, the website is hopefully going to serve as a knowledge hub for all things sport and sport for development on the continent. So make sure you follow that. And then all the resources I've mentioned, similar to Gloria, I have linked in the presentation. So when the TAFISA team sends it around, you can be able to click on everything. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone. I'm sorry to people who had their hands up. We couldn't allow you to speak because you only had an hour, and we are best to keep to time so that when we call you next time, you know that you don't go over our time. Thank you so much to Mariam, to Gloria, to Diane for that insightful deliberation. It was good to hear from all of you and to understand what is out there and how we can actually improve on what we've already started as TAFISA. And like I said, TAFISA, the safeguarding guidelines for TAFISA is one of the toolkits that we are going to be developing alongside 3 other from our project with Nike that is called Positive and Safe Coaching Pathway for Girls. So we will share the literature, we'll share the resources, we'll share the material as soon as the pathway is ready to be shared. But it's something that we're going to be implementing within our members, and it's something that we also be sharing with the presenters here so that when they want to link to their programs, we are free to do that, and also to engage us to make sure that we can also improve on the pathway. Thank you to the participants. Thank you to your questions. Thank you to those who had their hands up. I know you had great questions and comments, and you can put them in the chat. We will definitely be able to share that when we share the presentations. Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and good day. Bye-bye.